this video, I will walk you through how I set up an automation that automatically notifies me whenever there's a price decrease on a specific e-commerce item that I'm watching. I currently have the automation set up for items on Amazon, Ikea, and Walmart, but it can be applied to any e-commerce site. I also set up a different automation for eBay that does a search and notifies me if there's a certain item that matches my search criteria. It's super interesting, and we'll go over how I set everything up here in a bit so you can tweak it for your use case. All the code for this project will be available on my GitHub account. The link is down in the description below the like button. Alright, here's the scenario. I have my eyes on a specific e-commerce item on Amazon, for example. The current price of the item is a little steep, but I know the price will come down, but I don't know when. I also don't want to keep searching Amazon every day. I just want to be notified when the price drops. The first step is to get the price of the item, which is available on Amazon's website. One way to do this is through web scraping. Web scraping basically crawls through the content of the website to fetch the information you're looking for. Websites are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files that are sent to the browser from the server. You can see the contents of the file if you right-click and inspect the website. You can then use libraries like Beautiful Soup in Python to parse through the HTML and find the data that you're looking for. This works for most static websites, but it can get complicated for dynamic websites or for situations where you have to click a button in order to see the data you're looking for. Your code will also become outdated if the structure or the location of the info on the website changes. Companies also have blockers to prevent people from scraping data from their websites. With all those drawbacks, I wanted to find a reliable way of scraping the data, and that's when I came across Bright Data, the sponsor of this video. Bright Data is the world's largest data collection platform. They have a slew of tools that makes it super easy for you to collect data from anywhere on the web. They have available data sets on social media platforms, e-commerce products, real estate, business products, and more. You can also request custom data if you're not seeing what you're looking for. They also have a bunch of tools that make it easy to create your own custom data collector. I used their web scraper IDE to fetch the data that I'm using for this video. The IDE came with some preformed templates that were just plug and play. They also have proxies that allow you to bypass restrictions and blocks when scraping data. They have a bunch of other tools that make it very trivial to search for and collect data on the internet. To get the Amazon product information, I created a web scraper on Bright Data using the template they provided. I changed the input link to my item and ran the scraper. Within minutes, the data was ready for me. The data scraped from Amazon includes a bunch of information we can see here. For the project, all I care about is the price, title, and ASN. But you can see, it pretty much gives you everything about the product. You can use all the other information it gives for various things like product research, analyzing reviews, and more. We can schedule Bright Data to run the scraper every day at 9 AM, for example. We can then choose how we want to receive the data. We can set it up to write the data to an S3 bucket or download it as a CSV file. In our case, we'll receive it via a webhook. When the collector is done, it'll make an API call to our server with the data. Now that we have the price data that we're looking for, the next step is to figure out a way to analyze it. To do that, we'll write our own custom code that analyzes the data. Our server has three main parts. The first is the logic that checks for the discount, the second is the database, and lastly is the notification system. Now, the code logic is basically encapsulated in a Flask web server that's listening for calls. Let's take a look at it here. The first thing that happens here is I'm doing a bunch of imports to import the modules that are used. I'm using Firebase as the database. We'll get into that a little bit later. I then have some initializations for the Firebase account, as well as the tokens that I need for the Twilio integration, which is the notification system. Again, we'll also get into that a little bit later. First route here, it tells me whether the web server is up and running, right? So if I hit this endpoint, it'll return up and running for me to know that everything is working good. Next is the check discounts endpoints, right? It's a post method. So what happens is Bright Data will send the payload to this endpoint, the check discount endpoint. Once that payload comes in, I have some print statements here to basically act as logs so I know what data is coming in. I currently have it set up for multiple items, not just Amazon. So there's an if statement here that checks if the data that came in has an ASIN. If it has an ASIN, then I know it's an Amazon item. Then I handle Amazon entry. If it has an SKU and there's Ikea in the input URL, so the URL for which I scraped, then I know it's an Ikea, handle Ikea entry. If it has SKU and there's a Walmart in it, then I know it's a Walmart item. And then finally, if it's eBay and there's, eBay in the product URL, then I handle the eBay search. Now, the Amazon, the Ikea, and the Walmart are very similar, so I'll just go over one of them. And let's do the Amazon one, for example. So once the Amazon data comes in, I call this function, which is handle Amazon entry. Now, the first thing I do is I go to the database and I pull the reference, right? I try to pull from the database to see if I have an item in my database that is matching the entry for the ASN. Just so you are aware, this is what that database looks like, right? So these are all ASN. So I will try to pull one of these, for example, right? So once I pull that in, I check if it exists, right? If I can pull it, then it exists. If it doesn't exist, then I go to, add new Amazon entry. I send that data to this method here that basically just creates a new reference in the database using the ASN from the data that came in. Just sets the information that I'm looking for that data. So the price, the title, the URL, and the image. Again, as we saw, Bright Data gives us a lot of information, but this is the only information that I care about. That is why I am setting that one. So once I do that, I then create a notification, right? I create a notification item and I send it to myself. So the notification type is of creation, meaning I've created a new item in the database. I send the new entry, which is the data that I got from Bright Data, and then I send the current entry, which is none in this case. The create notification is very simple. Again, it takes a notification type, new entry, and current entry. It then generates a body based on the notification type. So if the notification type is of creation, then it does this. Otherwise, it does this, and then otherwise, it's something I'm not expecting. The enum for that notification type is down here below. It's something that I created. So that way, if I want to change or add at least a new notification type, I just add it here and automatically reference it from the code. But back to the notification for Amazon. Again, what happens is if it's a creation notification, it just, creates this message here that says, there's a new item in the database that has been created, and this is the specific message body. Else, if it's updates, then we'll go over this in a little bit. But the send notification is just a method that integrates with Twilio, right? That's the last component, right? I use Twilio to send notifications, so it's super simple. I print the message body for debugging purposes. I should probably be using log. That's a change that I'll make. But yeah, using the two authentication items that I initialized up here, I create the client, then I just send the message. The from is from my Twilio phone number, and then the to is to my personal number, and then the message is just the message body that I sent from my create notification for Amazon method here. That's what happens if the data comes in and I do not have an entry of that item in the database. And I set it up this way because when I deploy this code, which it is deployed on Heroku, by the way, when I deploy it, if I want to watch a new item, I don't want to have to modify the code, right? I can just go to Bright Data and create a new web scraper to scrape a new item, or just add a new link to my current Amazon scraper because it can scrape multiple items. I can just go add a new link. And then from there, if it sends the data over to my API, if my API doesn't have it, then it stores it and then it can keep watching it, as opposed to having to, modify it anytime I want to add a new item. That's what happens for the handle Amazon entry where the data doesn't exist in my database. Now, if the data exists in my database, what I do is I print the entry, I print the existing entry. I then check if there's a discount price. So I created this method that just takes two numbers, right? If today's price, right, the price that I got from Bright Data is less than the initial price, right? The initial price is whatever I have in my database, return true, otherwise return false. So what happens is if the price I get from Bright Data is, where are you? Yes. If the price I get from Bright Data is, less than my current price for today, then I print, hey, there's a price drop. Then I create an Amazon notification. This time I'm sending it a type of update, meaning, hey, this time update me that the price is reduced, and then send the new entry and the Amazon ref entry. So when it comes in here, it'll go to this function here, which is this update. It checks, it gets the previous price, it gets the new price, calculates the price difference, and then gets a percentage difference as well. And I round it up because sometimes it could be like 3.999978 something. I just want it to be either 4, 3%, like that. Then I create a message body saying, hey, there's a price alert that has dropped for the item with the title that I get. There was this price. This is the current price. This is the new price. This is the percentage drop, the percentage difference. And then finally, I include a link to the item, which is down here. I then send that to my send notification method that basically does yeah, it just sends a notification. First it prints it, then it just sends it to my text message. So before we go over the IKEA one, I basically want to show this in action so we can see what that looks like. So to run it, I have this command here, python 3-m flask app --app.py flask run. That's a mouthful, I know. Or you could just do flask run if you exported the path to where the main for the Flask app is. But yeah, you do that, the server is now running in development mode. So it's basically listening for new requests. To simulate the request locally, what I've done is I have gotten the data that I would get from Bright Data. So this is what the data would look like from Amazon for a specific item. So as you can see for this example, I'm currently looking at the Kensington SD5780T Thunderbolts docking station. Let me open this link so you can see what it is. If I go here and I click here, yeah, this is the item on Amazon. It's basically a docking station. For you or for your project, it can be any other item on Amazon. But for me, this is what I currently have my eye on. And the price is $266, right? So I can create a new entry in the database and show us getting that notification. This is what the data from Amazon would look like, right? You would have the ASN, the title, the initial price, the final price. These are all data that I'm going to parse in the code here, right? The code that we just went through. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and deleted all the entry that I have for Amazon. On the right here, you can also see my WhatsApp Twilio number. You can copy it, but by the time this video is done, it probably won't be available. But yeah, this is where the notification will come from my WhatsApp account. Let's simulate getting that initial call from Bright Data. This is what the data will look like along with everything. So when I send this, I get a new notification saying, hey, an item has been created and it's this item. And it has stored the data for that item there. The price here is $40.38, which is wrong. It should be, the actual price of the item on Amazon, which is around 600 and something, but I tweaked it as I was doing my test. But let's say now that we have this item in our database, let's say I tweak the price to $20. So we're basically simulating a call from Bright Data. Say maybe 3 days after, it's now $20 and maybe there's a 50% discount sale. What happens is if I send this to my API, if I send this to this API that's running locally, it should detect the discount and send me a notification. So if I send it, yep, it has detected the discount and I've then gotten a notification saying, price drop alert. This item in my database has dropped by $20, which is a 50% drop. I can then click on it and then go to the item and see it. The exact same thing happens for IKEA products, which is this here, I believe. Nope, that's the deployed one, which is this. This is what an IKEA product looks like. The exact data will come from Bright Data via a webhook. And then I can then run the exact same commands here as well. So let's see what that looks like for IKEA. Let's say I go here and I delete this, what we have here. So let's assume there is no data. If I send this, again, I get, it creates it and then I get the notification saying, hey, an item has been added to the database. For IKEA, it even sends me the picture of the item and then it puts the link, right? Now the price of this item here is $230. Let's assume for some reason we get a lower price from IKEA, which is maybe $200. Again, because of the logic in the code is pretty much the same, I'll send it. Again, it'll detect, a price drop alert and then it has sent and said, hey, the price is reduced. Now, if the price doesn't change, right, it's at $200 now in the database, which is what I updated. If I send this and there's no price change, then I won't get any notification. It's still the same. That's the logic behind it. The same thing happens for Walmart, and you can add multiple items to the Bright Data collector, right? I have the one for the docking station, I have the one for the IKEA wardrobe, and I have the one for the Walmart collector. The one for the Walmart collector is basically the same, so I'm not going to go over it. The one that's different is the eBay one. Now, with eBay, what I'm doing is something a little bit different. Let's open the Bright Data web scraper ID and take a look into it more. So for eBay, what you can do is you can search for specific items, right? Say I'm looking for an iPhone, for example. I'm looking for an iPhone X. I wanted to search for 10 items. If I care about the location, I put in the location. And if I care about the condition, say I want it to be used, but like new, I can put all that condition in here. If I want it to be refurbished, parts only used, but essentially anything that I'm looking for, I put it in here and I say, go search for Apple iPhone X, right? If I'm looking for a Givenchy t-shirt, things that people sell on eBay, I can put all of that here. For eBay, what it does is it goes and it searches for the item. It searches here, I'm asking it for 10. So it'll search eBay and get 10 search results essentially, right? And it then sends that data to my API. Now for eBay, we're doing something slightly different, right? Where if it's eBay, I handle eBay search right here. Now for eBay search, what I'm doing is I'm getting the total price, which is the price of the entry and the price of shipping, right? If we look here, this is what the data will look like for eBay, right? Say it found an item on eBay that matches my search criteria. It sends them as an array. It sends the first 10. And what I want to do is essentially get the price of the item and the price of shipping included to see if it meets my specific criteria. Now, my specific criteria is the price of the item and the price of shipping combined to be less than $500, right? Or 500 pounds in this case. Now, it sends us the shipping price as well. We get tons and tons of information from the eBay item. Now, for you or for anyone else, you could add more criteria, right? You could want the condition to be opened, never used, right? Or you could want the listing type to be buy it now. There's some listing types that are bids, right? If you don't want to bid, then you can add that here, right? So if the total price is less than $500 and any other criteria you want, you can add all of that right here. What then happens is, if my criteria is met, I create an eBay search notification, and it does the exact same thing, right? Where it creates a message body, says, hey, there's a new eBay item, this the shipping information, this the condition, this the product URL, right? For the eBay item, since it's a search, I'm not storing anything in my database. I just want to get the item, see if it meets my criteria, and then send a notification. So yeah, that's essentially what it does. Let's use this and test it. So if I click send here, it'll send this item. It'll simulate the call from Bright Data. All of this data is from Bright Data, by the way. It ran here and there was an output. If we want to see what the output looks here, we just click, run. It takes some time, but eventually gets that data and shows you a preview of that data, the output of the data. That's where I got the data from. But if we click send, yep, we got the notification here saying, hey, there's a new entry for Apple iPhone X, right? This the price, this the shipping, this the condition, and this the link to the item. And if I click it, it goes to the item. In our scenario, there's only one result here from the search, right? We're asking it for 10. What it could do is it could send the first 10 that matches that search criteria. We can then look through the 10 and say, if any one of them matches our second criteria, which is for price and, for my case, it's price and shipping price. For yours, it could be anything. Then it'll send any one of those 10. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, all of this is powered by Bright Data. They have tons and tons of other awesome tools. As I said, we went through the docking station for Amazon, went through the Ikea one. The Walmart one is basically the same thing, and then there's the used one for search. They have tons and tons and tons of other templates that you can use. There's one to search for, get LinkedIn profiles, LinkedIn companies, TikTok profiles. We use the eBay one. There's Walmart, there's ASOS, there's Shein, and a bunch of other things. And if you want to start from scratch, you can also start from scratch, right? If you want to get data for a custom website they don't have here, you can start from scratch, and it's very intuitive to use. Again, all the code for this is available on my GitHub account. There's so many other ways this project can be extended. Like one thing that I can think of is to add a date, right? If the price hasn't changed by a specific date, you can put that in the database, and when that date has reached, whether the price has dropped or not, you can have the code check if there's a cutoff date where it sends you and says, hey, the price hasn't gone down. It's time to buy regardless of what the price is. That's if you're searching for a discount. That would be helpful in a scenario for like flights, for example. There are a bunch of other things you can do. You can basically have it set up where you pull data from multiple websites and you compare to see which one has the cheapest price, right? That's one more thing you can do. That's it for this one. If you enjoyed the project, if you enjoyed the video, then consider subscribing. As I stated for the third time, all of this code is available on my GitHub. If you have any questions, leave them down below. If you like content like this, then consider subscribing. Catch you on the next one. Peace.